Erica and Christine, I have to say, this is a first for the Self-Starter podcast today because we have two for the price of one. So, really excited to dive into both of your stories today and learn all about Cranel. So, welcome to the Self-Starter podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think we should just dive into the good stuff here. Obviously, everyone wants to hear your stories. You've created this massive empire of solutions for women. So let's dive into the background about what you did prior to founding Cranel.
Sure. I'll go with my story first. So I did my undergrad here in the US. I was on a fluoride Division I volleyball scholarship. And then after college, I moved to Australia on a whim, ended up going to law school there, and then worked at Australia's largest bank. And so, not in this space, but obviously a woman who suffered with issues that we all do, UTIs. And so I'll let her before we then jump into the story.
Yeah, my name's Christine. I'm from Lake Tahoe, California originally. I went to undergrad in Switzerland and similar to Erica, moved to Australia very spontaneously. I worked most of my career for like 10 years in finance, mostly doing stock picking and covering US equities, and which is very different to manufacturing cranberry juice for women's health. But I met Erica in 2015 just through mutual friends. In Australia, Erica was known as Erica in America. And so we were the two Americans, like friends down there. But yeah, and then we started Cranel in 2020 as a side hustle.
Wow. So you both had very different backgrounds to where you are today. So I know, Erica, you had mentioned and alluded to a lot of the problems that women face with UTIs. So let's talk about that in general, because I think that will naturally just segue into from what you were doing into why you did what you're doing today.
Yeah, I mean, so typical problem, right? Women get UTIs. Despite what a lot of people think, it's not just from sex. Women aren't dirty. It could be because of your anatomy, how you're built. It could be because of your diet. You're predisposed to them. And so this was an issue that faced a lot of our friends as well, constantly on antibiotics, going back. And then when you get antibiotics, it ruins your gut. And then you get other issues. So your gut's ruined. Sometimes you get thrush, yeast infections, to a host of other problems. So Christine and I, we met on a boat in Sydney Harbor. And we were just talking about it. I mean, we had seen each other after that, and we were at dinner and just, like, can you believe there's not a solution? And it's at a time when it was ripe for both of us. And yeah, so then we just talked about it then and kind of came up with it.
Yeah, and for me, I guess it was really personal. Like I've had it on and off like over a period of years. And I think like the solution is naturally go to the doctor and you want to get antibiotics. I didn't really know like the effects of antibiotics. I just knew that it would get rid of UTIs. And I think UTIs tend to have like a stigma around them. But as Erica said, women are just more prone to them because of our anatomy. We have a shorter urethra, which can trap more bacteria. And this is like the anecdote, but I was working in a very like somewhat conservative investment firm. And I went in there, I was like, the old wives' tale. I went to go buy cranberry juice, which actually has too much sugar, makes it worse. But I get into the office, all they had was like a gallon of ocean spray. So I'm walking in at 8 a.m. with this gallon of ocean spray, hoping I don't run into anyone. My boss walks in, and he's like, "Oh, are you like making cranberry vodkas for everyone?" I was like mortified. I was like, I pray this man does not know why women drink cranberry juice. And I'm sitting there like drinking this at my desk. And we went to dinner that night. And I was just like, how is there not a better solution? Like, you talk to any of your girlfriends, they've all had a UTI, they all like have dealt with it. And why is there a stigma around it? And why isn't there a dedicated solution to doing it? And we had a few wines chatting about it that night. And the next day, like Eric called me, she's like, let's give it a go. Like, let's try to make this happen. And, the rest is history. But yeah, like we just kind of kept at it, kept going. And, the fundamental fact is cranberry is not an old wives' tale. There is an active ingredient in cranberry called parenthocyanins that actually flushes out bacteria, but you need a lot of that active ingredient to flush it out. And so we just like reached out to like chemists and cranberry manufacturers and scientists and doctors, like trying to figure out what what could this product look like?
Yeah. And, on that, just starting it, as you said, we did have full-time jobs. So we didn't want to overwhelm ourselves while we had a full-time job and lives and other things going on. So you might hear us talk about it a lot, really believe in micro steps. So just get 3 small things done a day, and that will eventually build. So we only met once a week. And on the Wednesday, we called it Wine Wednesday. Boyfriends at the time thought we were just going to get drunk, but we literally gave ourselves 3 small tasks. And for the first, month, it was just, you find 3 pieces of research, I'll find 3 pieces of research, because we wanted to make sure it was scientifically backed and not lifestyle. And then once, we felt comfortable with the research, then it was, you find 3 cranberry suppliers, I'll find 3 cranberry suppliers. So it was just those small tasks that over a while just added up to something major.
Well, and I can speak personally. Like, I think, like you mentioned, Christine, almost every single female on this planet has had one and they're not comfortable. But you also mentioned that your boss walked in and he saw you were like, oh gosh, I hope he doesn't know what cranberry juice is for. But it's not just women, just aren't the only ones that get this. I think I forgot which one posted this. I think it might have been you, Erica, but you did a stat. This was years ago. So this is how much stalking I was doing. But it said that 60% of women and 30% of men actually get UTIs. So that's not a small number of men either. And actually, my husband's gonna probably hate me for saying this, but he actually got a UTI on our wedding day. And he didn't know it because it's something that he had never had before. But we had spent a week leading up to it. He was in a pool, not drinking enough water, probably drinking way too much alcohol, all the like the wet bathing suit, all the chemicals, things like that. And the morning of our wedding, he woke up and he just like kept having to go and having to go. So much so that he actually was wearing a gray suit that day and he ended up doubling up on his underwear because he thought that he wasn't going to be able to make it through the ceremony. So this is a really big thing for everyone out there, not just the women, but obviously we're going to focus a little bit more on the women today. And Christine, I know this is very personal to you from your personal experiences, but when you went to Erica and you were telling her about kind of what was going on, Erica, how much like kind of convincing did it take to get you to be like really on board with this?
I am none. I mean, I've had UTIs, maybe just not as frequent. And I know plenty of women who have suffered from them. It's not, any one of your girlfriends has had one. You talk about it. It's something you talk about. It's there. It's a problem. It burns. It hurts other parts of your body. So I knew this was an issue. Most women know this is an issue. In fact, when we started, we surveyed a lot of our family and friends just to see, like, did they know? Have they had one? Do they know someone impacted? Do they know about cranberry? And we got like 95% of the people surveyed said yes. So it's not something that's kind of hidden. All women know about it. All women know someone who's been impacted by it or have had it themselves.
Wow, 95% came back saying that, like raising their hand, saying that they had been personally impacted. So I'm sure that was kind of that light bulb moment to you thinking, okay, we have something here. Now let's run with it. So
Yeah.
at that point, I really liked what you had said, Erica, about how you tackled this within a micro steps way, where you said, okay, every single week, we're going to give ourselves 3 specific tasks. So what were the kind of the first initial things that you did in order to really launch this business during your Wine Wednesdays?
I think initially it was like we were literally coming to each other with printouts of academic research around cranberry of like, does this actually work? Is it effective? Is this a big enough market? And like we would literally be like, only do 3, because I think that's kind of where a lot of people can get burnt out. It's like, oh, you need to have a product in a week. And it's like, oh, well, I can't, you just like burn yourself out. And then the next week you'd be like, okay, let's both cold call 3 manufacturers cranberry manufacturers to see if they can send us samples. I mean, we didn't even know what a sample looked like at the time. And like through our research, we also learned that like you can't actually grow cranberry in Australia because it uses too much water. So like we're off to a really good start. And so then we were like reaching out to US manufacturers to get cranberry sent to Australia. But then we were both like, okay, let's come up with 3 like concepts of a bottle.
Mhm.
So we would both come with like 3 kind of bottles that we liked. And I'm sure you've seen it on the website, but it looks kind of like a test tube, which we wanted it to like look different on the shelf. And like we just kind of kept at it. And I remember I would look forward to this, Wednesday every week because I'd be excited to like share with this person the progress that I made towards this kind of shared goal, which we didn't really know what the goal was yet. Like we didn't really know what it was going to lead to, where we were going to get to. But it was just those like culmination of steps that kind of over time we kept getting.
Yeah. And I think with those small steps, Christine talking about the excitement, it is exciting because it's not overwhelming. If we were asked each other to do that, okay, bring 10 pieces of research and 3 bottles and reach out to 5 manufacturers and then like a co-packer all at once and do that by next week, that would have been so overwhelming. You would have been stressed. You may not have gotten it all done because you also have your job and a life and other things going on. And then you'd feel stressed about coming because you didn't get everything. And so just those small micro steps made it really exciting because like, okay, I did this. Now let's go show it and see, where did she get and what did she get? And yeah, I think that was also another good part of that.
And I think that's really important for everyone listening to be able to kind of take a huge takeaway from is that things can be overwhelming when you're looking at the big picture. But if you are able to just break it down into incremental steps, like you said, like these micro steps to think about, okay, what's the most important task that I need to focus on right now? Because if you look at the entire picture, that's a lot that you had to figure out because we haven't even dove into it, but you had to this wasn't a space that you were familiar with for one. So you had to learn a whole new industry. You had to scientifically do all your research, make sure that, okay, is there a viable market for this and is it scientifically backed? You also probably had to work with manufacturers, hire a team. The list can go on and on because we're gonna dive into all of this right now. But if you were to start the business today and think about, okay, this is every single thing that I have to do to make that happen, the chances of our actually following through with that probably get pretty slim, I would assume, unless you're like a superwoman, which you guys are clearly, but you know what I mean, as far as like, it's just really overwhelming. So I really like that you started this entire conversation with breaking it down with these 3 micro steps, because that shows everyone that you can do things that are out of your comfort zone, things that you don't even know how to do if you just break it down into small actionable steps. So when did this become a full-time gig from that side hustle on your Wine Wednesdays?
So we were doing like really small batches in Australia. And this is also in the middle of COVID. So when we first started Cranel, our view was like, oh, we'll get into stores, we'll get into Pilates studios. That's how we're going to get the word out. And then COVID happened and everything was closed. And we're like, okay, this is going really well. And so then we had to like very quickly figure out how to do how to do e-commerce. We had to figure out how to sell online, how to build a following. We literally went on Reddit and found some guy named Potato Cruncher who told us he knew how to do Facebook ads. And he helped us set up our entire account.
Yeah.
He was amazing, but we truly hadn't, and this was the same thing. We would meet every week and be like, okay, let's both try to like come up with 3 new ads or 3 new this, and just kind of kept growing. And then all of a sudden the reviews started coming in from like, I think we started with like a nominal amount, like 5,000 units. Still remember when we first got our first order. I was like going on a walk and my AirPods, or at the time they must have been wired, my phone made a noise I'd never heard before, and it was a sale from our online website. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, what do we do? And I think we literally drove to that person's house and dropped it off.
Yeah.
It was insane. It was probably the fastest shipping ever that someone has had. And I think like that was a big moment that we were like, okay, like let's keep going. And then what really for me was like when we started getting reviews from women, and like bear in mind, like it was scientifically backed, it was clinically proven, double-blind placebo, like there were studies behind our product, but like the reviews from women that had actually experienced UTIs writing to us saying like, I've tried every single product on the shelf, I've been on antibiotics for 10 years, the only thing that has ever helped me, we were like, okay, we are on to something.
Yeah. And one of the reviews that I like still remember to this day was a woman going through chemotherapy, and she just didn't want to be on any more antibiotics. Her body's going through enough, and she had a catheter from the chemo, and so she was getting UTIs from the catheter. And she wrote us the longest review saying, this has helped me, like they're gone. And that was like, I think we were crying when we got that review. It was just like insane, and like to know that we were actually helping people with something was pretty incredible.
this is all happening as we're both working full-time jobs. I'm seeing Erica at this point probably every weekend,
Yeah.
most weeknights. My my apartment was full floor to ceiling with bottles.
Yeah.
And then our good friend, now investor,
Yeah.
Andrew Joyce, he knew the whole story, but we sat down with him for coffee. We're like explaining to him, he's like, you both need to quit your jobs and raise money and do this full time. You need to do it. Like you will, you'll always be sad if you miss this moment of opportunity. And I think for the both of us, we were like, okay, like what would that look like? What if, and then I think there was just this moment where we were like, let's just both really run at this opportunity and give it a go. Because I think someone sitting down and being like, you are onto something. This is insane. Like, do it, really was the push we needed.
Yeah.
Well, not only someone saying that you're onto something, but getting reviews like what you described, Erica, where there's a woman that literally is fighting for her life and her product has changed her life. And that just gives me the goosebumps thinking about it that way. And I can imagine being in your apartment together, reading this and just like full on tears, maybe with a glass of wine in your hand too. But that to me is like the definition of why you do what you do. And it just is the fuel that I know that I personally need to sometimes keep you going on the days where things do get tough. Because so far, it's been a kind of a linear story where it sounds like everything has gone your way and worked out really well. But also, as a business owner, I know that there's sometimes some things that don't go your way. So this is really helping in those moments. So let's talk about, like, obviously there was something here. We're going to talk about the investment, but leading up to this, were there any different things that kind of happened in as you're building this business that kind of were a little bit of a setback?
I don't know what about a setback, but as you progress through the different stages of your business, like big incidences at the time seem like massive and your whole world might crumble. But now that we are like in a different spot, we look back. I think we were looking at one the other day because she's like, oh, we're so cute. Like we thought that was like a big deal. Like we started getting, as Christine said, like the first order, we like hand delivered it. And I don't know, for whatever reason, we were like scared of the post, but we were just getting so many orders. We couldn't do it. And then we switched and like got a representative at the post office, and it was so easy to send them. And we're like, what were we thinking? And
It
so,
seemed like this really scary thing to be shipping. And to also add, I would say this is a setback and a big learning. Like we started with glass. All of our bottles were glass, really, to be glass. And of course, shipping glass is not sustainable. They were breaking. We were getting emails from customers like, hi, I opened my package and it was broken glass. And like, for that, it was like we already ordered all of this product. We already did all this stuff. And it felt like at the time, like, oh my gosh, like how could we have been so silly to think that we could ship this?
yeah,
And that was really hard. And then having to like pivot and be like, okay, now let's find something else. And like, let's figure out how we're going to package this in a way that, our bottles are fully recyclable and our packaging and everything. But it's just like figuring, like not taking something as this, like, yeah, that was a setback, but then it was also an opportunity to like be better for our customers.
yeah. And I think now as we scale and grow, we're scaling so quickly. Probably one of the biggest thing that we think about is our inventory. So when you grow really quickly, we have a subscription business as well. It's a preventative Cranel. And so a lot of women get it monthly. Over 50% of our of a business is from that monthly recurring. And now we we take it very seriously that we need to have enough stock for, these women who take it for their health and they religiously use Cranel. But when you grow really fast, you then have to order a lot more stock. And so it's fine to, when we forecast, we doubled, but sometimes when you grow that quickly, you triple or quadruple how much. And so you don't have enough. So I think that's the phase that we are getting out of now. And so, yeah, at different times, there are different obstacles you have to overcome.
And
But
you like become that person
Yeah.
that needs to be the person that runs that kind of business. Like as Erica said, I mean, we were keeping like a log effectively of all of our like we were up to at the time. And sometimes when I look back even a year ago, I'm like, I can't believe that we were that stressed about what was going on. Like we were able to overcome it. It wasn't that big of a deal, but at the time it feels like insurmountable. And that's why I think having a co-founder can be such like a game changer because this thing can feel so big and like you can't get over it. And then it's like, oh, we did it. Like, let's
Yeah.
keep going. But yeah, like what seems like a setback is actually, like during COVID when we were like, oh, we're going to launch in Pilates studios and the whole world shut down. We were like, okay, maybe not. But it was actually better to learn how to launch on Facebook and scale and like find these customers that weren't just always in person, but were, we started in Australia. We launched in the US like 2 years ago, like being across two geographies, managing currency, managing like all that stuff. If you would have told us back when we were having our Wine Wednesdays with micro steps, it would have felt really scary to be able to do that.
Mm.
But as you kind of progress and like take these steps every week, they become so cumulative. And it's been a journey.
Yeah.
And we were about to talk about your investment opportunities here. And I think that's a really good time to bring that back in, because this has been able to scale because you decided to leave your 9-to-5 jobs and go all in on this and raise some capital. So let's also dive into how you went about raising money and how it's really impacted. I mean, you just shared a little bit about that, but the long-term impacts that it's had on your business so far.
Yeah, I think we decided to raise capital rather than, well, we bootstrapped it for a long time and then we wanted to go full time and really scale. I mean, we had product market fit and we had a product that worked. So we really reached out across like our networks, friends, family, etc. And I think like we'd both been in the industry for a long time. We knew like the data points that investor needed to see. We needed to see like retention. We needed to see like, reviews that it worked, that we were growing, et cetera, and like what that growth would look like going forward. So we did our first round of capital raise.
Yes.
And really we set like attainable goals, but like audacious goals, and mostly for ourselves, to like keep ourselves accountable. We also send like quarterly updates to investors. We set like our own forecasting. But I think for us, it was the right decision to just be able to like, one, pay ourselves so we weren't like financially stressed, but also it's a capital intensive business.
Yeah.
It takes 63 days from ordering the raw cranberry to getting a finished product that we can ship to customers. And that requires a lot of capital up front. And I think for us, like as we've scaled, which we can talk about later, like it really started as a UTI business. And over time, we kept getting reviews from women that there were other use cases that they were using it for as well. And we were like, okay, we can either like bootstrap this and grow slowly, or we can raise money and grow quickly and be a part of women's routine.
And really that first mover in this space, that isn't a tablet, that isn't an antibiotic, that isn't, the ocean spray juice of the world, and really just like talk about all those women's issues and make women feel comfortable and that it is normal.
So you said something really interesting. You said it started as something for UTI, but then it became a part of women's routine. So let's talk about how it's transitioned because of your opportunity to raise this money.
So yeah, it started as a UTI and then really developed into, so cranberry has more antioxidants than most fruit and vegetables, great for skincare, great for hair care. It also has a really low pH. So the vaginal microbiome also has a very low pH. It sits around 4, and this plays into like fertility, it plays into smells, infections, etc. It has to stay at that like low pH. Cranberry also has an incredibly low pH. And one thing that can happen when your pH goes too high is bacterial vaginosis, which is one of the most common infections in women. And that happens when your pH rises and doesn't go back down to normal level 4. And what happens is that fishy smell and itchiness, and that can also lead to infection. And so we had women reaching out to us saying like, similar to UTIs, hey, I've tried hundreds of products to help with this, very embarrassing but very natural fishy odor, and this is the only thing that's worked for me. And now I take it weekly religiously. But we also found, like you said, 30% of men get them. People with prostate cancer are really prone to them.
And then, as Christine said, cranberries have more antioxidants than most fruit and vegetables. And they also have a specific antioxidant, the polyphenol, that's good for muscle recovery. So I don't know if you've heard of this tart cherry juice craze for muscle recovery. Well, Cranel has more of it than the tart cherry juice. So the Michigan State women's soccer team reached out because they were using it for muscle recovery after games. And so this was made possible, of course, with the investment, because we were able to grow, because we were able to scale, reach more women, and I guess the bigger the population you have, you can understand the different effects of how it's working with different women. And so, yeah, we were just able to learn about all these things. And of course, speaking to medical professionals, scientists, again, just to make sure that what we're saying, we know we're not the experts on that, but we will go find that right information for our customers.
And I think when we raised investment, we were only in Australia, and raising investment really gave us the ability. Like, our plan was always to launch in the US, which is nearly impossible while living in Australia. Like, it's almost exact opposite time zones. You're like, you know what? We should just move continents. And so we moved to the US just like to launch here and be on the ground. And I think raising investment, one, like helped us kind of extrapolate that growth a lot faster, and also like keep us accountable to investors. If you say you're going to do something, you should over deliver. And also what are you tracking? Are you tracking revenue? Are you tracking profitability? Like, what does success look like for us, and what does it look like for investors, these people that backed you early? And I think like also raising investment, every person I have ever spoken to about Cranel has had a UTI or knows someone with a UTI. And that is such a unique, like, I guess, like, product benefit of Cranel, is that it helps people with this issue that really does have a stigma around it. Like, in the early days, Erica and I pitched at this, naively tech event that was mostly all men. We pitched the product, etc. We had a little booth, and this guy comes over and he's like, in front of like a group of people, he goes, "Oh, I thought you could only get a UTI if you had sex in a swamp." Like, and this is someone saying this to us. Like, we have pretty thick skin. I'm like, I can't imagine how women feel who don't have thick skin around UTIs and such. And so there is just this stigma that you're like,
what?
And I think that's one thing that we really wanted to counter with our product and the product design, and like how you feel receiving it in the mail. It comes in a beautiful box. It's, you're not opening it feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm taking this because I'm shameful. It's like, wow, this is beautiful. I'm taking care of myself. Like, this is good holistic health for me. Yeah. So the investment really helped us move quickly and take that space.
And I assume the product is no longer in your living room.
I mean, I do have a lot in my living room.
Yeah.
Actually.
But like, as far as distribution, do you have like a distribution warehouse and everything like that too? So you're not as having to be as hands-on with a lot of the mailing or taking it literally to someone's front door.
Yeah. I mean, so now we have like 3 FDA GMP manufacturing facilities and 2 fulfillment facilities across the US and Australia, which is incredible to say. We've only been full-time for like just over 2 years. And yeah.
And in over 2 years, from the research that I did, it sounds like you scaled to a $2 million annual revenue rate. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
They are. Okay. That's huge. Absolutely huge. Like, obviously your finance backgrounds definitely help with all of that stuff. And like what you were saying with the investors, like giving them all the information and the quarterly reviews, not only for them, but also to help keep you on track and accountable. I think that was just genius in itself, because what you created here is no small business. This is massive. And in 2 years, if this is what you've been able to create, like, just think about it's gonna be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. This is gonna revolutionize the way that women's bodies just are in general. I think it's in a really good time to be bringing this about, because I think people are more focused on what they're putting into their bodies and not just looking for just a Band-Aid solution like an antibiotic. They're looking for like a complete solution and something that's natural. And this is what you've been able to bring to so many people, both men and women. And no, it's not just from swamps.
Weirdest comment.
So weird. Now, I mentioned at the beginning, this is the first duo that I've talked to with 2 co-founders on one call. So I'm curious as to how this, I mean, obviously it sounds like it's been a really good working relationship so far, but has there been areas where you've had to lean on each other in different areas based on your levels of strengths and or weaknesses here?
Yeah, I would say we're your first co-founder duo, but I would say I don't know how people are solo founders. I would find that incredibly challenging. I mean, not only with skill set, but with energy, because, things do go wrong. And all the time. And so, one week I'm up and Christine's down, and then the next week I'm down and Christine's up. And you really need that other person to be there while you're freaking out to say it's going to be okay. Because I think the biggest challenge with all this is the mental side. We're not in a big building. I'm not in a big corporation anymore where I have a million other people around me all the time. It is, they say being a founder is only it is. And yeah, being together. And then, just with our other strengths, we kind of both do everything and split it up. But yeah, I'd say we definitely both have our strengths and help each other with different parts of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think like we will have known each other for 10 years this year, which is a long time. And we've been co-founders since 2020 effectively. And I think it's always just like factoring in that we're both human and like, we may disagree about something and then just taking a break and then coming back. It's like, okay, actually, yeah, I agree with you. Or maybe we should do it this way. And like constantly A/B testing gives us the privilege to like, one, test each other's theses against things, and two, try to figure out like what is the best path forward. But I think like relationship is most important in terms of scaling the company, because we both have to be like confident to keep going and like, okay, let's like, trust each other's opinions and judgment on how to scale and how to grow. But yeah, I think it's worked really well. I mean, I feel very lucky to have a founder that was willing to take the risk, a co-founder that was willing to take the risk, because it wasn't 100% clear. Like we were in lockdown in Australia and like raising capital, and it was like not 100% clear what the next steps were. But having someone that was like, you know what, let's just make it happen, because steps aren't always clear in life, I think. And when I look back at like, I'm like, who were those girls? Like, yes, like they took the risk and went for it. And I'm so proud that we were both able to do that. But I think we were only able to both do that because we both really supported and pushed each other.
Yeah. And I think you, as Christine said, like, have to remember we're all human and make mistakes and do other, and go through phases, and and you're tired. And at the end of the day, like, we both remember that we both love this business and this company so much. And whatever we say, it's about the business, and we both want the best for the business. At the end of the day, that's what we need to think and remember. And we do a good job at that and just communicating that.
Communication, so key. It's like it is like a marriage, effectively. Like
I talk to her more than my husband.
And sometimes with like even your significant other, it's like you think something like boils up so much and you're like, oh my gosh, like put your cups not in the same dishwasher. Like, oh, okay, thanks for telling me. And you're like, oh, I could have told you that like months ago. Like I think that's the biggest thing is communication and making sure like you're just able to communicate. And I feel like there's
overly communicate.
Yeah.
Overly, yes.
Yeah. No, it sounds like your story has been a smooth one as far as the relationship goes, because picking your co-founder is probably the most important thing that the most important decision that you'll make for your business if you choose to have a co-founder. Because like you said, this is like a marriage. You just might not be going home with them at the end of the night, but you're going to keep returning to them every single day. And you're making some really pivotal, life-changing decisions here. So I'm really pleased to hear that it's been such a wonderful journey for both of you here. And I honestly could keep asking you questions all day, because there's so much to dive into here on your story. And just, I know that everyone's going to be wanting to learn more about this and figure out where they can get their hands on Cranel. So if anyone's listening to this and thinking, I have to be able to get my hands on this product, where could they go to find out some more information?
Our website is cranel.co, and then all of our socials are at Cranel Official.
And we're available on Amazon, Walmart.com, and Target Plus.
Wow. Look at you girls go. I'm so pumped up just like hearing your story. So thank you so much for sharing just this wonderful product that you brought into the world. But one last thing before I let you guys go today, if you are thinking about where you were back in 2015 when you just met each other and you had this burning idea that came to fruition during COVID, if you were thinking about a woman that was kind of in that space, really wanting to do something of her own, but really not sure where to start, besides the breaking things down into 3 micro steps, what kind of advice would you give her?
I would say back yourself and trust yourself to take the leap. And sometimes when you put yourself into that survival mode, you will be surprised with what you're able to pull out of it. And like sometimes the most magic comes when you're like, okay, I have to make this work now or never. And you really have to trust yourself to take the leap. Yeah.
Yeah. And then as you're taking that leap, I would say don't be afraid to reach out to your network and ask for help. Once you put yourself out there, you will be so surprised how many people will be willing to help. Even if it's a small, silly question, people are always willing to help.
I would say the whole world is going to keep your idea close to you until it's out in the world, and the whole world's going to criticize you. So be positive self-talk goes a long way. Like even the smallest thing, like I did such a good job today. Like I think it goes so far to stay positive and optimistic because the world's going to be against you sometimes. And like if you're positive and optimistic and confident in yourself, it can go so far. And positive self-talk every day, smallest feats.
Yeah. Everyone's going to have an opinion.
Ain't that the truth, especially in the world that we live in where everything is online, and everyone can hide behind the little clicks. But anyways, this has been such a wonderful conversation of just what can happen when you see that there's a gap in the market, when you decide to take action on this, and you start by taking just small incremental steps. Because if you just look at the entire big picture, it's overwhelming. But if you just start with the first thing that you can do and take it from there, then look at what you can create in just a relatively short amount of time. So Christine and Erica, thank you so much for coming on to the Self Starter podcast today and sharing your stories.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.